back to Rating the List, where we review, discuss, and reimagine popular movie lists objectively. We're your hosts. I'm Jerry.
And I'm Brad. In this episode, we're exploring number 96 from AFI's 100 Years, 100 Passions, the top 100 love stories of all time.
All right, so number 96 is Barefoot in the Park, released in 1967, directed by Gene Saks, and starring Jane Fonda and Robert Redford.
The synopsis for this romantic comedy is as follows. Newlyweds Corey, played by Jane Fonda, and Paul, played by Robert Redford, move into a fifth-floor Greenwich Village apartment. They are very much the definition of opposites attract. She's a free spirit, and he's a conservative and uptight business person. Their highly passionate relationship descends into chaos as they deal with their problematic apartment and personality differences. They split and appear done, but both realize how much they love each other and reconcile.
Yeah, so I really liked this movie. It was interesting. The whole opposite attracts really works. It was what I think you compared it to Dharma and Greg, where she's very hippie-ish.
Yeah, like I was saying, if you've ever watched the television show from the 90s, Dharma and Greg, whoever is the showrunner for that and whoever was a writer on that show, I would put money that this is among their favorite movies because these two characters are so much like the characters on that show. Yeah. She's kind of a, hippy dippy kind of.
She's very free spirit. She's very spur of the moment. She's very adventurous. She's, her own woman. She and Jane Fonda plays her fantastically.
And Robert Redford is just this super buttoned up. I think he's a lawyer, right?
Yeah, he's a lawyer.
Super buttoned up lawyer, and he's very conservative, and they have really great chemistry. The dialogue in this is snap perfect. So this is based on a Neil Simon play. Yeah. And Neil Simon has always been known for very quippy, great dialogue, and this movie has it in spades. There's just so many great lines and so much great back and forth. There are a lot of especially romantic comedies, they have a lot of funny situations, but you don't often find yourself actually, LOLing.
Yes.
I hadn't seen this movie in a really long time, and there were a couple moments in this movie where I was just really laughing. Yeah. There's some really funny spots.
Really funny spots. He's a lawyer. They met each other and they got married very fast. Yeah. And they move into this tiny little apartment.
And it's got all kinds of
issues. And he's really uncomfortable with it. She's like, it gives a character,
She chose the apartment without, he was you go do that. I'm too busy. I'm working. And so she was put in charge of picking their apartment. Yeah. And this is she picks this fifth floor apartment in this building that doesn't have an elevator, so they've got to go up 5 flights of stairs just to get to their place.
It's crazy.
And they play it as a joke, because the phone guy's got to come up.
Their mom, the mom's all having a heart attack getting up the stairs.
His mom, she's having trouble getting up there, and it's just they play it for laughs, and it really works. It's kind of a funny gag. And the thing about this movie is even though it's set in the 1960s, that particular aspect is as true today as it is then.
Yeah, and it's a very, very, in watching a lot of movies during this era in 1967 and stuff, there's always problems that we're finding, socially and, in the way women are treated or people of color are treated. This movie is very progressive. There was nothing like that.
There was a little bit, so...
Except for the end.
Well, the end and a little bit when they're in, I think it's supposed to be a Greek restaurant. There's kind of a random, European ethnic kind of restaurant, because there's a character that is some random European ethnic character that you don't know. He's either Greece or Italian or something along some kind of Mediterranean country that they don't really ever kind of explicitly state where he's from. and they go to like a restaurant that, you know, it's kind of like an underground restaurant kind of place. And, you know, Robert Redford's character is
He's totally uncomfortable.
He's really uncomfortable. He says a few things that are a little off
Dicey.
kilter for it. And it's just like, you know what? Yeah, you're conservative, but even conservative people that live in a city like New York, which is where this takes place, because obviously it's Neil Simon and everything he does takes place in New York City. You know, if you live in New York, you're gonna come across, you know, New York is probably it might be in the entire world. It's one of the most ethnically diverse places on the planet. I mean, it's got, I think there's like 16 million people or something like that now that live in New York City. You have probably someone from just about every country in the world that lives in New York City. There was a really interesting documentary. It was kind of a companion piece to a book called The Six Daughters of Eve.
Okay.
Which is about tracing your ancestry back as far as possible.
Yes.
And the book is able to trace back every living person at the time, which was like, I think the book came out like the early 2000s. You could trace your ancestry back to one of these 6 women.
That's so cool.
Using mitochondrial DNA. So they kind of did a live kind of experiment, and they just picked this random street in New York City that had so much ethnic diversity in it. It was off the charts, and the people that were the most closely related by genetics were not who you would think they were.
Yeah.
Like there was this older Jewish man and this guy from like sub-Saharan Africa, and they both traced their genetic makeup back to one of those particular people, to the same one, and they look nothing alike. And you know, the cool thing about it was, like, the older Jewish guy was so into it, and he thought it was so absolutely interesting. You know, like, he's just like, I find it so interesting that, you know, I can trace my genetic makeup back to this gentleman who looks nothing like me, and we have completely different life experiences. And he's like, it just shows you how small the world is. It was a really, really cool
That's very
documentary.
cool. Yeah.
So, you know, to have someone who's kind of poo-pooing that, even if they're super conservative, you would think that, you know, he would be a little bit more open-minded to cuisine, experiences, those kinds of things, even if he's really buttoned up. So that was one small little problem with it. And then like you said, the very end
at the end, okay, so she, you know, they end up separating, and they're both very sad about it. And she is talking to her mom and saying, you know, I don't know what to do. I don't, you know, she's having a hard time. And her mom basically tells her, he's your husband. You need to change a bit. You need to change to conform to his ways. That's basically the conversation.
Right.
So she kind of mellows out. She goes and finds him. He's also trying to, you know, he's going barefoot in the park, you know, to try to really do something like she does.
Right.
And so they're kind of compromising in a way.
Let his guard down. And compromising in the best possible way. So we had, in the last episode, we were talking about compromises with the characters in Greece.
Yes.
Where one of them is compromising in a way that's positive, and one of them, in my opinion, is compromising in a way that's negative. Here, I think you've got 2 characters that are doing that in a positive way to strengthen their relationship. Yeah. They both realize how much they love each other.
Yeah.
And, you know, Jane Fonda's character is absolutely flighty and over the top.
And not only that, like, when something happens, she's very black or white.
Yeah.
Like, she's very like, oh, what, you're mad at me? Okay, we're over.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Yeah.
You know, she's very extreme.
Yeah, she's super extreme, and he's actually, you know, for her kind of personality, he's the perfect personality match.
Yes.
Because he's like, okay, let's simmer down.
Yeah.
Let's calm this down. You know, a woman like that or a guy like that needs a partner who is much more reserved and can kind of take that. I don't know if we know any relationships like that.
I don't know anyone who's like that at all.
Not at all.
Not at all.
So this would be like an extreme version of our relationship.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not about to go into Central Park without my shoes on. That's just not a good idea.
And I'm not super conservative, but
No.
I'm pretty laid back, and I kind of have to tone her down on occasion when she.
He's definitely my rock.
So, I really enjoyed this movie up until the end. This is the first movie on the list where I would say, let's definitely do a remake, because this movie, everything that's happening in this movie would play perfectly.
Yeah, it really would.
You could even set this like in San Francisco that has really skyrocketing rents, and you could see this kind of situation. Like there's a guy that like lives like above their apartment building, like in this basement, and he's got to like he's got to go up this crawl space.
This total ladder to get
and he's got to like
place.
walk along the roof to get into this like basement. You could totally see that happening like here in the Bay Area.
For sure. Yeah. You know, there's people living in people's attics.
Well, when we bought this house, there were a great many people living here. So we saw the Google images later, and there was like a lean-to off the side of our house, so someone was living off there. We found a soap on a rope in the backyard because someone was living in a tent in the backyard, and they had some kind of like temporary wall set up in the garage. So there was like we've gotten mail here for like probably like 15 different people. So, there was a lot of people that were living here, and that kind of living situation out here is kind of common.
Yeah,
so
the Bay Area is no joke.
You could really pull that off. The one thing that I think the movie was really missing is the backstory of how they got together, and I think it needed a little bit of that. I think you needed a little bit of lead up into how they met, how quickly they got together and married and all that. I don't think you need to spend a lot of time with it, but some time. Like we didn't get any kind of backstory with them.
I don't
whatsoever.
think you need it. I don't. I think it's a testament to their relationship that it was just a split decision. It was something he was obviously okay with, because he doesn't make quick decisions like that. So he must have really felt like she was the one, right?
Yeah, okay.
So I don't really think that's necessary.
Yeah. And I think they would probably have to do something like, she'd have to have some kind of occupation. Mm-hmm. So maybe she's like, like she does something, like she's an artist or does something on Etsy or something. She's doing something, because that's just that part of modern society is just. That's completely different.
She would have to have a job.
Yeah, outside.
Even if you're living in a tiny little studio in San Francisco,
if you're living in a major metropolitan area in this country, you're not going to have a single income household. Yeah. You can still get away with it in parts of the country, but not in somewhere where this.
But there may be people out there doing it. I don't know, but anyway, yeah.
Yep. So. My score on this one was pretty high. It was 76. Jerry's was a 67.
Yeah, that's because the last act really let me down.
Yeah, and the list score is 71.5. So we both enjoyed this movie quite a bit.
Yes, it's a good watch.
Hadn't seen it in a long time. Until next time, please like and subscribe if you want to continue this journey with us. Again, I'm Brad.
I'm Jerry.
And we're rating the list. We'll see you next time.
See ya.
Bye.